Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way, YouTube will keep showing you more stories like this. Now, let's begin. I'm John, 22 years old. I'm finishing up my college degree in the small town of Springfield, Illinois. 3 years ago, I needed money for tuition, so I decided to apply for a job at the Chuck E. Cheese family entertainment restaurant. I had so many great childhood memories there. When I came back as an employee, I thought the job would be easy and fun. I used to think the owner was a kind and compassionate person, but he was actually one of the most unpleasant and uncaring individuals I've ever met. He was always in tight control of every employee and constantly gave us new tasks. Most days, the store was understaffed. It seemed that working at Chuck E. Cheese was a job no one wanted. In the end, I had to do almost everything I was asked to do, except cook. However, out of all of us, the mascot was the most overworked person. For a long time, I never saw the person inside the costume. Almost all the time, he was in the Chuck E. Cheese costume and on stage performing for the kids. One day, I witnessed his exhaustion. At the time, I was wiping down a table right next to the performance stage. When I glanced up, I saw a drop of blood coming from the corner of the mask's eye. I couldn't believe my eyes. Around me, the kids were giggling and clapping to the music, completely unaware of the unusual thing happening right in front of them. I knew the person behind the mask had felt my stare. Charles started to act weird. His familiar dance moves became clumsy. His steps were no longer steady. The person inside the costume was visibly shaking. He was trying to control his body, but he couldn't. Suddenly, the owner appeared with a look full of rage. He yelled at me to get back to work. When the mascot saw the owner, he retreated behind the curtain in a hurry. The kids screamed. This made the owner even angrier. He quickly ran through the restricted door to the back room. A few parents looked annoyed and seemed to be getting angry with the employees. I didn't want to get yelled at, so I quietly followed the owner into the back room. I followed the yelling to the mascot's dressing room. I tiptoed closer and saw that the door was ajar. The scene I witnessed made the blood in my veins run cold. The mascot, without his mask, was hunched over in front of the mirror, crying bitterly. When I saw his face, I was so shocked that I had to cover my mouth to keep from screaming. His face was full of cuts. "Please, I can't do this job anymore. Please let me go," he pleaded in a desperate voice. I could hear the owner's footsteps walking around the room. He was yelling, "Shut up, you weakling! Why can't you do a simple job?" The owner stood behind the man in the costume and leaned close to his ear. His voice was full of threats. "Unless you want me to find a replacement for Charles, there's no one else to take your place. That means you're going to stay here and keep the business from going bankrupt, okay? You can't go home. You have to keep playing the role." My curiosity went too far. I sneakily moved closer, but I bumped into the door. It swung wide open. "Well, it looks like we found a new candidate for the role of Charles," he said with a cold smile as he kicked the mascot and stomped on his stomach. The owner looked at me with an evil stare and said, "Close the door, kid. We need to talk." The mascot groaned in pain under his foot, but the owner didn't care. Just as the owner was about to step toward me, the mascot suddenly got up. He pulled a small knife from inside the costume and lunged straight at the owner. He didn't have time to react, and with all the pent-up hatred, he stabbed him repeatedly. The owner's screams grew weaker and weaker. Then they stopped completely. The space was silent. There was only the sound of heavy breathing and the strong, metallic smell of blood. When his rage subsided, he turned to me. His voice was calm. "Call the police for me." My hands were shaking. I fumbled for my phone. The mascot didn't resist. It was as if all the pain and oppression he had endured for so long had been pushed to the limit. And this was the only way to be free. I was both scared and felt sorry for him. I think he had hidden the knife in there for a long time. The police came. He was taken away. He would have to face the law. But I think he accepted his choice. In his last fleeting glance, I felt his relief. I stood there, drenched in sweat. I quit my job right after that. Since that day, I have never gone back to Chuck E. Cheese. I also don't want to step into any kid's entertainment restaurant again. Even though 3 years have passed, the image of the man in that costume still haunts me every night. It was just a regular Sunday in Texas. The Texas summer heat was already starting to kick in, but Sarah and I still loved our weekend afternoon strolls. It had been our thing ever since she was a toddler. She was 8 now, and I was always so proud of my smart little girl. I never could have imagined that in the blink of an eye, our lives would turn into every mom's worst nightmare. We were walking on the street, just a few blocks from home. Sarah was telling me all about her science project at school. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have these simple, everyday moments. And then, everything changed in a flash. A black truck came out of nowhere, screeching to a halt right next to us. Before I could even react, the door flew open. A big guy jumped out. He lunged at Sarah, yanking her arm out of my grasp. I screamed, my body reacting instantly. I grabbed for Sarah, trying to hold on to her, but he was too strong. His moves were so fast and practiced. In just a few quick seconds, he had Sarah, and I was sprawled on the pavement. I scrambled after them, clawing at the car door as it slammed shut. I put everything I had into it. My fingernails broke, bleeding onto the truck door, leaving streaks of red. The truck sped off, kicking up dust, and Sarah was gone. Her terrified eyes looking back through the window were the last thing I saw. I stood in the middle of the street, helpless, watching the truck disappear. A hollow, desperate feeling washed over me. I screamed for help. Passers-by stopped, and a few immediately called 911. I knelt in the street, shaking all over, trying to remember the license plate. But my mind was a mess. All I could recall was that it was an old black truck. The police arrived and quickly started their search plan. I knew every minute that passed meant Sarah was being taken further away. At the police station, I tried my best to stay calm and give them information. An officer patiently wrote notes as I described the kidnapper. A white man, around 50, with a rough look about him. 2 hours after the interview, an officer came into the waiting room where I sat. His face was serious. They had identified a suspect from nearby security cameras, and he matched my description. Robert Miller, 51 years old, released from prison just 3 months ago. He slid a file across the table to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. A mugshot and a long list of prior arrests, all for sexual assault. A female officer sat next to me, offering a glass of water and a blanket. I don't remember when I started shaking. In my head, the image of Sarah, alone and scared, calling for me, played over and over. I sobbed, silently begging God to keep her safe. The police launched a citywide search. Sarah's picture was on every local news channel. I couldn't stop blaming myself. I was right there, but I still let my daughter be taken, unable to do anything. 2 hours felt like torture. Reports from patrol units kept coming in, but there was no sign of Sarah or the truck. I felt like I was sinking deeper into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I kept checking for calls or messages from unknown numbers. Maybe the kidnapper would ask for a ransom. But my phone remained terrifyingly silent. I couldn't sit still. I paced the police station waiting room, my heart pounding every time the door opened. My sister arrived, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed. I clung to her, my body trembling in her arms. Sobs choked in my throat. She stroked my hair, whispering words of encouragement, but I knew she was falling apart inside too. Sarah was our whole world. Almost 6 hours passed. My hope was fading. The sheriff reassured me they were using every resource they had. Police lights flashed everywhere, searching for traces of that black car and my daughter. But I knew time was running out. I'd read enough about kidnappings to understand that the first few hours are the most critical. At the 7th hour, a glimmer of hope. A motel manager on the outskirts of town called to report a suspicious man who had just checked in with a little girl. The manager had seen Sarah's picture on the news and thought it might be her. My entire body trembled with hope and fear. The sheriff issued the order via the radio. It took almost another hour for the SWAT team to be deployed to the motel. Time stood still. I sat next to the female officer, my hand gripping a cold coffee cup, my eyes glued to the clock on the wall. In my mind, 1,000 horrible scenarios played out. Was Sarah still alive? Was she hurt? The crackle of the radio broke the tension. The SWAT team had breached room 114 of the motel. Miller had been arrested. And Sarah, my heart stopped as I waited for the news. Sarah was found. She was alive. They found Sarah hiding in a dirty laundry basket, buried under a pile of clothes. My smart little girl had managed to hide from the kidnapper while he was asleep. Sarah had put the self-defense lessons I taught her to good use. If you can't run away, hide. Find a safe spot and wait for an adult to help. Sarah remembered those words. She fought in her own way. I rushed to the hospital. My daughter was pale and scared, but she was alive. Sarah lay on the hospital bed, her big eyes wide when she saw me. I pulled her into my arms, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. I felt her tiny heartbeat, and it was the most beautiful sound in the world. The doctor said Sarah didn't have any serious physical injuries, but the emotional wounds would take a long time to heal. Throughout that night, I never left her bedside. I held her small hand, listening to her steady breathing. I silently thanked God and the relentless efforts of the police for bringing my daughter back. A few days later, I learned about Miller's confession. He admitted to stalking us for a week. Taking advantage of the fact that it was just Sarah and me, he quickly put his plan into action. The trial took place 6 months later. I sat in the courtroom, my back straight, my eyes fixed on the man who had almost destroyed our lives. Miller looked old and pathetic in his prison uniform. It took the jury only 10 minutes to reach a verdict. Guilty of federal kidnapping. Life in prison without parole. I learned to be even more cautious. I taught Sarah even more self-defense lessons. I'm proud of Sarah, and I'm proud of how I raised her. This world has bad people lurking in the shadows, but the light of love, bravery, and proper education will always be the strongest weapon to protect those we love. I'm Sarah. Last Friday night, my close colleague Jessica and I decided to hit up our usual spot on the boulevard to unwind after a crazy week. Jessica was drinking quite a bit, probably because her love life wasn't going so well. I stuck to juice and danced a little since I was the designated driver. Around 1 a.m., we were about to head out. Suddenly, Jessica clutched her chest. her face wincing. "Sarah, I feel really nauseous. I'm just gonna run to the restroom for a second. Are you okay? Want me to come with you?" "Nah, I got this. You go grab the car first." I nodded, grabbed my purse, and walked out of the bar. The Los Angeles night air was cool. The parking lot was behind the bar, so I had to cut through a small alley. As I stepped into the parking lot, I heard a man's voice. "Hey, you called an Uber, right?" "I'm Mike, your driver." I glanced over my shoulder while fumbling for my car keys in my bag. A gray car was parked near the entrance, and a white man stood next to it. He was talking to a blonde woman. She was hugging a light pole, her legs shaky, clearly pretty tipsy. It was a pretty normal sight in this area on weekends. Young women getting drunk and calling rides home. I continued walking toward my car, only about 10 yards away. I don't remember calling a ride," the blonde girl stammered. That made me slow down a bit. Who doesn't remember calling a ride? No matter how drunk you are, calling a ride home is usually a natural reflex at the end of the night. "You did, honey. Check your phone. Trip to Beverly Hills, right?" The man's voice sounded a little rushed. I stopped completely, pretending to search for my keys, but actually observing. The girl took out her phone, her hands shaking as she scrolled through the screen. "I don't see any notifications, and I don't live in Beverly Hills." "Oh, might be a system glitch." "Just hop in. I'll confirm the address later." The man opened the car door. At this point, I paid closer attention. The car didn't have an Uber logo on the window or anywhere else. No signs indicating it was a rideshare vehicle. More importantly, the way the man was talking sounded like he was trying to convince her, not like a normal driver confirming a trip. The girl was still quite hesitant. "But I thought I called a ride to Santa Monica." "That's right, Santa Monica. My mistake. Get in. It's cold out here." The driver became more insistent. Suddenly his eyes darted to me, looking startled. I quickly turned away, trying to look annoyed as I pretended to search for my car keys. Now I knew for sure something was off. He just said Beverly Hills. Now he's switching to Santa Monica. The two locations don't even sound remotely similar. A real driver would double-check the information before confirming. I carefully looked at the car. There were absolutely no signs of a ride-sharing company. The girl stepped closer to the car door, still suspicious. "Can you show me your phone screen? I want to see the trip information." "My phone's dying. Just get in. We'll sort it out later." That was enough. No Uber driver would let their phone die while working. I decided to intervene. "Hold on. Can you show me the trip information on your app?" The man turned to look at me, his eyes ice cold. "This has nothing to do with you. She seems unsure and you can't prove you're an Uber driver." He stepped closer to me, his voice threatening. "You should mind your own business." The blonde girl heard our conversation, seeming to sober up a bit. "Yeah, show me your phone with the trip." "I told you my phone's dying," Mike snapped. "Then how do you know the trip information?" I asked, stepping to stand next to the girl. "How can you get information from the company without a phone?" He was silent for a few seconds, then changed tactics. All right. I'll check again. You just get in first. I'll charge my phone to show you." "She's not getting in until you prove it." The girl now stood behind me, as if finding protection. Mike looked at me with hostile eyes. "Look, lady, you're making things complicated. This is just a misunderstanding." Right then. The blonde woman suddenly didn't look drunk anymore, swiftly grabbing my arm. "What the heck?" "Get her in the car, quick," the man ordered. I realized in a panic that I had fallen into a trap. This wasn't a drunk victim. but an accomplice. I struggled, screaming, "Help me! Someone help me!" The blonde woman was stronger than I imagined. She twisted my arm forcefully behind my back. The man named Mike ran over, clamping his hand tightly over my mouth. "Shut up!" he hissed, then punched me hard in the stomach. The pain was intense. I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred. My body convulsed, almost completely giving out. They dragged me towards the car. "Please don't," I whispered weakly, no longer having the strength to scream. "Relax, honey," Mike chuckled delightedly. He opened the car door, and both of them tried to shove me into the back seat. My head was spinning. "Sarah." Jessica's voice rang out from the parking lot entrance. She ran out, saw the scene, and screamed, "What are you doing to her? Help! Someone call the police!" The two kidnappers immediately panicked. Jessica continued to scream loudly, attracting the attention of people inside the bar. Two bouncers from the bar ran out. Mike jumped into the car and started the engine, but Jessica and the bouncers ran up, blocking the front of the car. The blonde woman dropped me, intending to run towards the car to escape. One of the bouncers tackled her to the ground. Mike hadn't even had a chance to start the car before he was surrounded. He knew he couldn't escape and raised his hands in surrender. Police arrived within 10 minutes. They searched Mike's car and found rope, duct tape, and a camera. The man's full name was Mike Taylor, 42 years old. The woman was Lisa Rodriguez, 35 years old, a former bar employee. They had been doing this for 8 months, kidnapping 6 other women before me. All these victims were used by Mike to film videos for his sick desires. It was also how he forced the girls to keep silent. I trembled when I heard that. I burst into tears and hugged Jessica tightly. She had saved my life. I was discharged from the hospital after 3 days, having learned a profound lesson, and I never walked into a parking lot alone again. I've got no clue how long I've been stuck here. In this pitch-black hell, time just stopped. All I remember was heading home from the gym. I got into my car, and boom, this shadowy figure came out of nowhere. Before I even had a chance to react, someone grabbed me from behind. They slammed a towel over my face, reeked of chemicals, and that was it. Everything went dark. And now, still darkness. My head was spinning, like I'd been hit with a brick. I tried to move, but there's barely any space. My hands reached up, felt wood. I stretched out to the sides, more wood. Reality started to sink in. I was lying in a freaking wooden box. "Help! Somebody help me!" I screamed, pounding the lid with everything I had. Nothing. Just this dull thud and something shifting. And then it hit me. They were burying me. Oh my God, they were burying me alive. "Please, I'm Violet. My family's loaded. They'll pay whatever you want. Just don't do this." "Listen, Violet. You've got 7 days. If your family doesn't pay up, you die in that box. You've got food, water, a blanket, and a flashlight. There's a tube to breathe through. If it rains, the pump will drain the water." I lost it, screaming, crying, begging, but all I got back was silence. My hands were trembling like crazy as I fumbled around for the flashlight. Finally found it. I flipped it on. The light stung my eyes. I squinted, trying to take in where I really was. The wooden box was rough, just big enough for me to lie down, barely stretch out. There was a bottle of water, a couple of protein bars, a thin-ass blanket, and a piece of paper. 7 days. If the family doesn't pay $5 million, you will be forgotten. Don't waste water and food. I thought about my parents. God, they must be freaking out. I'm their only kid. $5 million's a ton of money, but I knew they'd do whatever it took. The real question was, would they find me in time? I shut off the flashlight to save battery. No clue how long I laid there, but the air was getting heavy. Every breath felt tighter than the last. My sweat was turning sour, and the heat inside the box was climbing like crazy. I held it in for as long as I could, but eventually, I lost. I ended up peeing in the corner of the damn box. I stared at the water bottle. My throat was sandpaper dry, but I hesitated. What if it was poisoned? Tried counting numbers to stay calm. Got to. I don't even remember. I lost track. My body started slipping into this weird, restless sleep. Then suddenly I was back in my bedroom. Warm sunlight spilling through the curtains. The smell of pancakes drifting up from the kitchen. But then that cold, damp feeling yanked me back to reality. I woke up. Just darkness. Thick and heavy. The smell of sweat and piss was everywhere. Thirst clawed at my throat. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the bottle, took a tiny sip. The cool water hit my throat like some kind of miracle, but I didn't dare drink more than that, just one sip. I was starving. I started talking to myself. Come on, Violet. You gotta make it through this. You're only 17. You've got your whole life ahead of you. But then this other voice kicked in. You're gonna die here. In the dark. Alone. Forgotten. I flipped on the flashlight just to check. Check that I was still breathing. That this wasn't some god-awful nightmare I'd wake up from. The beam lit up the scratch marks I'd made on the side of the coffin. Wild, panicked clawing from the first night. The temperature kept swinging like crazy. The heat came in waves, making me sweat like crazy. And then suddenly it'd drop and I'd be shivering in that damn thin blanket. The smell in the box was unbearable now. I tried breathing through my mouth to escape the stench, but then I panicked. What if I was using up more oxygen? Everything started to blur together. I remembered stuff I'd never paid attention to before. The scent of Mom's perfume, the way Dad laughed at his own dumb jokes. Tiny little pieces of life I never thought I'd miss, please. Please don't let me die in here. Nothing. No reply. It must have been 3 days, maybe more. Hunger tore at my gut like an animal. Thirst made my mouth feel like it was cracking open, tongue swollen, stuck to the roof of my mouth. And the exhaustion, God, it was like my body was slowly shutting down, cell by cell. Sleep became the enemy. I couldn't let myself go under for too long. Every time my heavy eyelids slid shut and opened again, that same panic hit me. What if I used up all the oxygen? What if I drifted off and never woke up? I tried pushing against the lid with everything I had left. Nothing. It wouldn't budge. I clawed at the sides of the box till my fingernails cracked and bled. That tiny box was making me lose my mind. I couldn't sit up, couldn't stretch out. Every inch of my body screamed from lying in the same damn position for so long. Someone, please, I croaked. But no more tears came. I was completely dried out, inside and out. That's when hope started slipping. Maybe my family couldn't pay. Maybe they couldn't find me in time. Maybe this was where I'd die. Would it hurt? Or would it feel like just falling asleep? I had no idea how long I drifted in and out like that. Half conscious, half delirious. Time didn't mean anything anymore. Everything melted into one big mess in my head. Then, a sound. From above. Was it real? Was I hallucinating again? I froze. Listening. Digging. Metal hitting rock. Footsteps. Voices, urgent, panicked. It was getting louder. Someone was digging. Here! I'm here! I tried to yell, but it came out like a dry whisper. Help me! I slammed the lid with the last bit of strength I had. And then, light. Blinding, painful, but the most beautiful damn thing I'd ever seen. The lid flew open. Faces leaned over me, people shouting over each other. "She's alive! Get an ambulance!" They pulled me out of the box. Fresh air hit my lungs like a punch. I coughed hard, gasping, choking on it. Someone threw a blanket over me. There were flashing lights everywhere, cop cars, voices shouting. Next thing I knew, I was in the back of an ambulance. When we got to the hospital, the doctors couldn't believe I was still alive. 83 hours buried underground. I'd lost over 20 pounds. My body was wrecked from dehydration. But weirdly, my mind felt clear. Like something deep inside me had dragged me back from the edge. In the days that followed, everything started coming together. Turns out they were part of a crew that kidnapped rich kids. They'd been watching me for weeks, following my routine, waiting for the right moment. The box had been buried in the middle of nowhere, out in some remote wooded area, 18 miles from the city. If it hadn't been for a random witness who spotted their sketchy car, I wouldn't be here right now. After that whole nightmare, even the tiniest space made me panic. Darkness wasn't just darkness anymore. It stuck with me, like this shadow I couldn't shake. But still, that experience changed me. I stopped taking things for granted. Every single breath of air, every sliver of sunlight, every second I got to spend with my family, it all became priceless. I'm Emily, 24 years old, a graphic design student. My life has always revolved around long classes, creative projects, and the monotony of a small town in Pennsylvania. I didn't think downloading Tinder on a free evening would lead to a series of events that terrified me to the point of never forgetting. Mike was one of the first people I swiped right on. He is 27 years old, tall, with dark brown hair and deep blue eyes. His photos were always taken in impressive places, at the top of mountains, on pristine beaches, and in a forest during the vibrant fall season. He must be a guy who loves nature and freedom. There was something about Mike that drew me in, a confidence and strength that radiated from every message he sent. We chatted for weeks, and I decided to meet him in person. From the very first moment, Mike displayed his charm, from the way he looked at me, smiled, and his subtle gestures. We started dating. Mike enjoyed quiet evenings and trips to remote locations that he deemed inspirational. He often drove a worn-out black pickup truck, but the engine roared like a wild beast. Every time I went with him, I could feel the difference between protection and control, between passion and intrusion. Those things made me both love and fear him. About 6 months later, things started to change. Mike became controlling, always wanting to know where I was, what I was doing, and who I was with. He was no longer the charming man who made my heart flutter, but became a dark shadow following my every step. The check-in questions about my day gradually turned into controlling messages and incessant calls. One time, he showed up outside the school library just because I hadn't replied to his message in 20 minutes. I began to feel suffocated, and within me, a growing emptiness started to expand. Then I met Tyler, a classmate with a cheerful personality and a lovely smile. He doesn't seem cold or controlling, simply an approachable guy who gives off a gentle feeling. I don't know when I started liking Tyler, but I know it's not fair to Mike. So I decided to end that relationship before it got worse. That evening, I met Mike at a familiar cafe. Pale yellow light covered the space, but that warmth was not enough to ease the tense atmosphere between us. When I said goodbye, Mike's face darkened. He was silent for a few seconds. His hands clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Before I could walk away, He rushed forward and grabbed my arm tightly. "You can't leave me like that," he growled, his blue eyes now like cold ice. I panicked and tried to pull away, but he was too strong. Before I realized anything, he pulled me into the car and slammed the door. Mike drove out of town, across empty roads with no one in sight. I sat in silence, my heart racing, my fingers trembling, trying not to let him see the fear choking me. The streetlights grew sparse, giving way to darkness that swallowed everything around us. Mike's gaze glanced at me through the rearview mirror, filled with hostility. The car stopped at the path leading into the forest. Mike opened the door and ordered me to get out of the car. I reluctantly complied, not knowing what would happen next. The space around us was silent, only the sound of the wind howling and Mike's footsteps on the dry leaves. I felt the air around us freeze, my skin cold despite the beads of sweat pouring down. "If I can't have you, then no one can," he hissed like a wild animal. I stepped back, my foot catching on an exposed tree root, and I fell flat to the ground. Mike stepped closer, his shadow stretching long under the dim moonlight. In a moment of desperation, I grabbed a nearby branch and threw it forcefully toward him. Mike was taken by surprise, hesitating for a moment, and I seized the opportunity to get up and run for my life. The trees rushed past on both sides, their branches scraping against my skin as if trying to hold me back. I heard footsteps chasing behind me, along with Mike's furious shouts echoing in the darkness. I didn't know how far I had run, only that my legs kept moving despite the burning pain spreading throughout my body. When I saw the light in the distance, I charged toward it without hesitation. It was an abandoned rest stop with a dim light flickering. I hid in a corner, pressing my hand tightly over my mouth to stifle my heavy breathing. Mike's footsteps grew louder and closer. He yelled, calling my name in a fit of rage. The footsteps gradually faded, then disappeared. I waited a few more minutes, making sure he had left, before running with all my might toward the main road, where I was lucky enough to flag down a passing truck. I called the police, cried, and told everything. Mike was arrested the next morning. Police found him in the same woods. Even though he didn't hurt me physically, the obsession from that night still clung to me like an indelible ghost. I know I escaped a nightmare, but its consequences will last forever. The above story is not only a warning about control and violence in love, but also reminds me of the power of survival instinct in the darkest moments. I am Maria, 37 years old. I've spent 20 years dealing with therapy sessions and popping endless sedatives. Guess I'll just have to stick with them forever. Sounds pretty rough and hopeless. But I'm one of the lucky ones out of the 50 poor souls taken down by that highway menace, Robert Ben. When I was 17, I met Mike, a boy from the next class, and fell for him real quick. But both our families were totally against us being together. When we were all about impulsive thoughts and crazy decisions, Mike and I decided we were going to run away from home. We planned to meet up on the highway, brought some clothes and cash, and figured we'd take off for a few days. Right at 9 p.m., Mike and I met up, and we hugged real tight, all hyped and happy. We kicked off the trip by hitching a ride with some trucker. A truck pulled over pretty quick, and the driver, all friendly, hopped out and asked us what was up. Well, what are you two doing out here at this hour?" He was like my dad's age, had a deep voice, and his face was uneven. His mouth was crooked to the left. "I'm Maria, and this is my boyfriend Mike. Can you give us a ride to the next city on this highway?" I got straight to the point. "Awesome. I mean, yeah, for sure. Hop in." The driver was cool about it and quickly jumped in to show us the way. I had barely taken 3 steps when Mike grabbed my hand and yanked me back. "Maria, I think. We should grab another ride." Mike was iffy and looked kind of freaked out. "What's up, Mike?" "We don't have much time. You think our parents won't catch us here?" I was rushing and getting a bit annoyed. "But he kept staring at your boobs. Cut it out, Mike." "You can't talk like that about someone who's helping us." I pushed the thoughts aside, didn't pay much attention to how Mike felt, and jumped in the car. Mike quickly ran over, hopped in the front seat to split me and the driver up. I shot him an annoyed look, and we took off. I could hear metal clanging together non-stop from the back of the car. Mike and I looked at each other, probably with that curious look, and the driver finally spoke up. "The door latch is kinda loose, haven't had a chance to fix it yet. Hope it's not bothering you too?" Then he looked at me and gave me this weird smile. "Oh no, we're good." I quickly said, "I still don't know your name." "Ben." "That's what everyone calls me. Full name's Benjamin Wilson." I smiled back, but seeing how tense Mike looked threw me off. "What's up?" Mike heard me and jumped, then turned to look at me but didn't say anything. He pulled out his phone, and a few seconds later, my phone buzzed with a new message. "Maria, you hear someone moaning?" I froze, tried to listen real close, then out of nowhere. I could feel warm liquid on my arms and face, and a strong, nasty, fishy smell hit my nose. It took me a few seconds to turn to Mike. He was hunched over, his neck had a deep gash, and everything was covered in red. The driver was holding a sharp knife, just grinning at me like he was having a blast. I freaked out, mouth wide open but no words coming out, and Mike's scared eyes were full of pain and hopelessness. "The truck's too cramped with 2 people, the driver said, then slammed on the brakes. I was dying to get out of there, wanted to run, but the car door was locked. Don't do anything dumb unless you want to end up like him. Immediately after speaking, the driver forcefully pulled Mike out of the car, further enlarging the wound on his neck. That was the last time I saw Mike. He got left on some empty road. I screamed, ready to fight back, but my weak ass just made him more excited. He popped open the trunk, and with one big push, he shoved me in, his bloody hand still all over me. "This is..." I was freaked out. My body just froze up. This trunk was like a nightmare, full of chains, clamps, leather straps, all kinds of twisted stuff. There was a girl, trapped by that sicko with all that stuff, and it was pretty obvious what he was planning to do. Just thinking about that stuff makes it hard to breathe. On top of that, in the corner of the truck, there was this girl, naked and tied up so tight she was bleeding all over. She was gasping for air, barely hanging on, fighting through the last miserable moments of her life. I was going to take her place, and that's when my 7 days of hell started. Pain, fear, hate, obsession. But not once did I give up on trying to escape. One evening, I begged him to let me have my fave Popeyes burger, and maybe because I'd been good the past few days, he actually said yes. I used every bit of strength I had, just desperate to escape the chain, but my wrist got all torn up. I quickly ducked into a dark corner instead of running, 'cause that sicko would have found me in no time. When it got light, I ran out to the main road, hoping to get help from people in cars, not trucks. I got saved and finally came to after 2 weeks in the hospital. I told the police everything I went through. Benjamin Wilson got life without parole, but honestly, that's nothing compared to the hell he put innocent people through. As for Mike, they never found his body. 4 years back in the fall, my girlfriend Louisa and I went on a road trip across the state to celebrate hitting 2 years together. We started out in Amarillo, headed southeast through Fort Worth, and ended up in Houston. The last part of the trip was all about chilling and having fun at the Kemah Boardwalk, where I was planning to pop the question to Louisa. I was pumped for this trip. After a week of listing stuff, getting everything ready, and sorting out work, we hit the road. The first part of the trip was always a blast, and we were full of energy. We talked, snacked, checked out the streets, and got hyped about the trip. After a few hours, we got into a little argument, and I could tell Louisa was pretty upset. Same here, and I bet other couples do too. But it was all good. We got over that first bump pretty quick. We grabbed some amazing Texas BBQ and kept going when it was almost dark. We headed over to Fort Worth real quick. It's a city that mixes old school and modern vibes. After driving for a bit, I was totally caught off guard when Louisa shouted, "Hey! Look!" On the side of the road, this old guy was standing there waving at us. I didn't slow down or answer Louisa. I just drove right past the guy. "What's up with you, William?" Louisa was pissed at me. "Louisa, he's a total stranger," I pointed out. "He's pitiful and needs help." Louisa's voice kept getting louder at me. "How do you know he's pitiful?" There's been so many scams like this lately. You can't just let random people in the car. Louisa went quiet after seeing I wasn't budging, staring out the window. The silence went on for almost 2 hours. Louisa shouted again, "William!" I looked where Louisa was pointing, and there was a man standing on the side of the road. "Stop the car and help him," Louisa pushed. "Isn't that the man we saw like 2 hours ago?" I was doubtful, and Louisa was getting pissed. Whether it's him or anyone else, we gotta help him. And I still decided to just drive past the guy. Of course, with how Louisa is, she got mad at me. With my girlfriend yelling at me, I just stayed quiet. Arguing right then wasn't gonna help at all. Maybe I made the right call. Even though Louisa was still pissed, at least she shut up after a few words. We drove through a busy street and stumbled on this random music festival with a bunch of young people our age. I stopped the car, yanked Louisa out, and jumped into the fun to shake off the awkward vibe. In the noisy crowd, with the music blasting and lights flashing, I spotted the man from earlier, the one we'd seen twice on the highway. But for just a second, the lights went out and then back on, and he was gone. I pulled Louisa away, surprising her, and said I wasn't feeling great and was a bit hungry, just to get us out of there. We stopped at a Buc-ee's. It was like almost midnight. "I'll grab you whatever you want, cool?" Louisa gave a little smile and went inside while I stayed out to pump gas and would head in later. I tried to play it cool in front of Louisa, but in my head, I was feeling all kinds of restless and worried. A ton of questions and thoughts about that weird guy kept popping up in my head. After pumping gas, I went back into the store, looking for Louisa in the fast food section. "Louisa!" I yelled, getting everyone's attention, and marched over to her with a death glare. My girlfriend was talking to that guy. It had to be him in those torn-up clothes. But when I got closer, he was totally gone. "Did you just talk to him?" "What did he say?" "You good?" I asked, freaking out. "Come on, William. It's just a homeless man asking for some food." "Please, William, your overprotectiveness is just turning into selfishness and being annoying." Louisa was getting pissed again. I just wanted to look out for her. But then I'm called selfish and annoying. My whole mood was off, and I snapped back. And then the tension between us just blew up right there in the Buc-ee's. "Fine. Do whatever you want with that annoying attitude." "I don't need you either, you jerk." She stormed off, and I wasn't about to chase her. It was the dumbest, worst decision of my life. After leaving the store, I looked around but couldn't spot Louisa. I could hear muffled screams and a car engine in the distance. It was Louisa getting yanked into the car. I screamed, tried to chase after them, but it was too late. The car was already gone, swallowed by the dark road. I was all fear, panic, and regret in that moment. I called police right away, and the whole investigation was a total nightmare. The Buc-ee's security cam caught the kidnapping that night, but since it was far away, you couldn't really see the kidnapper. I told police about the weird guy. A week later, they finally caught the kidnapper hiding out in some old house on the outskirts of the city. That freak, Dominic Novak. He admitted that he overheard me and Louisa talking at the BBQ joint, and that's when he started stalking us. He said he wanted to ruin our happiness and had been planning to snatch Louisa from the start. I couldn't keep it together and just ran straight to punch that crazy guy right at the police station. During the questioning, the guy just sat there all calm, like he didn't feel bad at all. He went on, talking about how he followed us and grabbed Louisa, but when police asked him where Louisa was, he just grinned and said, "You'll never find her." Dominic wouldn't say a word, just kept Louisa's location to himself. The next few days were a total nightmare for me. Not only was I dealing with Louisa disappearing, but I also couldn't shake off the guilt and torment. I spent all my time and cash looking for Louisa, checking out the old streets, asking everyone, but no luck. Even though they never found Louisa, they wrapped up the case, saying she was killed and Dominic got life in prison. It's been 4 years, and I've kinda come to terms with losing Louisa. The engagement ring I always carried with me still reminds me I never got to get down on one knee and put it on her finger. When I was 12, I heard a painful scream while I was sleeping. I told my parents and sister about it the next morning, but I was the only one who heard it. My parents thought I was just dreaming, and my sister freaked out and told me not to talk about stuff like that again. I was sure about how I felt, but then I just brushed it off. Then one night, I jolted awake because the door slammed shut. Before I could even figure out what was happening, I felt the bed shaking and something gripping me hard. It was my sister, Charity. I heard a woman crying. My sister was shaking. I didn't say anything, just listened. There was definitely a woman crying, quiet, but I could hear it. My sister and I just piled under the blankets, turned on our favorite cartoon to block out the crying, and ended up falling asleep without even realizing it. The next morning, my sister was freaked out and told my parents about it. She even backed me up, that the screams I heard before could have been real. My parents exchanged serious looks and then turned to us like, "Did you two pull any pranks last night?" "Mom!" We were serious. How could we laugh in that situation? My sister said, sounding pretty helpless. "So, where'd the laughing and talking we heard yesterday come from?" Dad asked, and we all just stared at each other in shock. Dad quickly checked around the house and called the local police for help, but they didn't find anything weird. A few nights later, it was a mix of screams, crying, begging, and the scariest part, gunshots. My whole family ran out of the room, all of us with scared eyes, just looking at each other. There were a bunch of police cars on the street, because a lot of families, including ours, had called to report it. That night, the whole neighborhood was wide awake, and everyone was just confused and freaked out. A big group of over 20 officers worked all night into the next day, but they still didn't find anything. It was impossible to figure out where they came from. Slowly but surely, people started moving out of the neighborhood. They weren't patient enough to wait for the police investigation results, so they just decided to bail. Mr. White, Mrs. Ava, Mrs. Kate, all the neighbors who were close to my family decided to do the same thing. Some families said their goodbyes to the ones sticking around and wished them all the best before heading out. But some families and single folks just vanished without a word. Just like that. My family's neighborhood went from a chill spot to a place filled with ghostly and creepy stories. That scary time lasted almost 6 months. A bunch of times, I used a tape recorder and set it up in the basement, 'cause that's where I picked up the clearest sounds. It felt like it was coming from underground, I told my parents at dinner. One day, my next-door neighbor's mom came over to see me. She said she hadn't heard from her daughter in 2 weeks. We were all shocked. Everyone in the neighborhood thought she had just left, so nobody asked or even paid attention. The police looked into it and found out that 13 people were missing out of the 28 residents who were supposed to have left the neighborhood. The tension and confusion hit a whole new level. That same evening, I heard my sister's clear, heartbreaking screams coming from some unknown place. I immediately bolted out of my bedroom and ran to my sister's room, and my mom and dad were there at the same time. "Heather!" My mom yelled her name in a total panic. The room looked totally fine except for the fact that my sister was missing. The government kicked off a big investigation. All the families still in the neighborhood were moved to new places to make things easier for the police. Beneath our once nice street is a whole world of evil and demons. There's been a human and arms trafficking ring running for months with 33 victims. They're all young women between 16 and 23, and girls from 5 to 8. They only found 10 survivors who were alive and okay. No one knows where the other victims are since the ringleader decided to take his own life as soon as he got caught. Everyone probably has their own thoughts about their tragic fate, but they just can't put it into words. My sister was lucky to come back unharmed, but the doctors said the psychological stuff she's dealing with is basically incurable. It's tough to wrap your head around the cruelty that some messed up people dish out to their own kind. I'm Robert, and my twin sister is Laura. Our family of 4 lives in a mobile home. We move every day along the roads through towns, cities, and states. My parents always choose empty lots or wooded areas for the family to spend the night. My sibling and I didn't attend school like other children. Instead, we followed an online program. It may sound deprived and unfortunate, but my family was still very happy for 13 years. One evening, after our parents went to sleep, my sibling and I snuck into the forest to play. Because we spent 90% of our time in the van, we were very curious about everything around us. Laura clutched the hem of her shirt tightly, following closely behind as I held the flashlight to light our way. The sudden rustling sounds of leaves being disturbed startled us. We stood frozen for a moment, until a growling sound signaled the approach of a large and terrifying creature. I grabbed Laura's hand tightly and ran with all my strength without looking back. Miraculously, my sister and I made it back into the house safely without our parents noticing. We absolutely kept that a secret from our parents. The mobile life of the family continued as usual. One day, I told my parents during dinner that I wanted to settle down somewhere. I want to go to school, have more friends, and sleep on a big bed in my own room. My parents looked at me, silent for a long time. "Do you still remember what happened when the 2 of you were just 4 years old?" Mom asked me gently. "We don't want that to happen again. We won't be able to live if we lose you 2. When my twin sister and I were 4 years old, while the family stopped to play at a park, we almost got kidnapped by a man. Since that incident, our parents have been more vigilant about us, and rules were established for us." Laura didn't say anything, although I knew she also shared the same desire as I did. I remained silent, although I was not satisfied or comfortable. Several months passed with our mobile life until my sibling and I were about to celebrate our 15th birthday. That day, my parents parked the car in an empty lot and instructed my sibling and me to stay put in the car until they returned. Laura tidied up the car to decorate for the birthday, while I lounged on the bed with my gaming console. A moment later, Laura called me urgently. "Robert, come here quickly." Laura was sitting next to an old box with some papers in her hands. The box was something my dad used to prop up the driver's seat every day, and I thought the papers were just some kind of advertisements. But Laura handed them to me with a very serious expression. That was our birth certificate, but our parents' names were Owen Taylor and Anna Taylor. While our current parents are Maria and Louis, there were also a few old newspapers. June 13th, 2000. A case of 2 missing twin children under 6 months old received significant attention. November 20th, 2000. The mother of the 2 children, after months of desperately searching for her kids, went insane. The father did not give up. He was willing to pay any price and do whatever it took to find his children. April 4th, 2004. The father, after many years of searching, accidentally encountered the 2 children in a park. With the identifying features, he was certain they were his 2 children. However, the kidnappers attacked him and took them away. Once again, the man fell into despair as he lost his children for the second time. There is a hand-drawn sketch of the 2 kidnappers in the article, and it's shocking how much it resembles our current parents by about 70%. An article also included a letter that the father wrote to his 2 children. Dear Robert and Laura, my beloved children, I don't know where you are right now, but remember that your parents always love you. I will try to find you and bring you back, so please stay healthy. I looked at Laura. Her eyes were red and her body trembled from shock. I didn't think much, grabbing Laura's hand, and ran out of the car, running fast and far to a police station to ask for help. We were kept at the police station for our safety. Laura couldn't stop crying. I knew she was very scared. That very night, a man came to the police station. He looked at us for a long time before kneeling down and bursting into tears. He was our biological father. Our adoptive parents were wanted and captured 2 days later after going into hiding. It was difficult, with feelings of guilt and regret as we had reported the people who had taken care of us for 15 years. But according to the police, we would soon have been sold by that couple as valuable goods. My brother and I were taken back to our hometown in Ohio, living in the spacious house we had long dreamed of. Although there are still distances and unfamiliarity, we will gradually adjust because we know that this place truly has the love of family. I'm Jax. I was 31 years old. I thought I was handsome with blonde hair, blue eyes, over 6 feet tall. There are many interesting persons I've met, but I'm still waiting for the one who's really right for me. On the flight back to visit my family that summer, after all the check-ins, I sat waiting for the boarding time. A man sitting in the opposite row looked at me intently. He has toned muscles, healthy brown skin, curly hair, and a high nose bridge. He wore an elegant black suit. I think he was on the same flight as me. The flight was suddenly delayed by 2 hours because the destination was having bad weather. I had to play games on my phone to pass the time. About 30 minutes later, I was startled to see that man still looking at me, smiling friendly and waving. I was a bit surprised and waved back. I was actually quite impressed with that appearance. He proactively approached, introduced himself as Alex, 33 years old and working as an engineer in Texas, which is also my hometown, coincidentally. He said he noticed me from the first time he saw me. That's right, he's gay, and so am I. People like us will have a special feeling about people who are similar to us. Alex and I follow each other's Instagrams. I want to get to know Alex better. The flight finally took off, and we sat quite far apart. Landing at the Texas airport, I got my luggage back. Alex pulled 2 suitcases and happily walked towards me. We asked each other about the next destination. Alex said there was another package. Alex asked me to hold the 2 suitcases and quickly return to the baggage gate. I didn't think much and happily agreed to wait for Alex, but he hadn't come back for 30 minutes. Looking at the clock, it was almost 10 p.m. Another 15 minutes passed. I tried contacting Alex via Instagram several times, but to no avail. Both mine and Alex's luggage were 4 large suitcases. I couldn't drag them all over the airport to find him. Hunger and fatigue made me frustrated. Alex called me back, apologizing very much for keeping me waiting. Because something unexpected happened, Alex left the airport first. Alex told me to go to the address he texted and sent a private driver to the airport to pick me up. He wanted to invite me to his house for a meal to thank him. I felt better after receiving Alex's call. Alex's personal driver is a man taller than me, with a fierce face. The car he picked me up in was quite old, cluttered with bottles and jars, making me feel uncomfortable. The driver took me to a small, shabby house on a deserted road. I looked around bewildered, got out of the car, and went inside following the driver's instructions. The house was dimly lit, had a strong, musty smell, and had an indescribable cold feeling. I walked very slowly, looking around as I walked. The driver was still walking behind and staring at me. I started to feel scared, told the driver to call Alex to come and get the suitcase back, and I would wait here. He didn't answer or do anything, just stood there staring at me. Taking a few seconds to try to calm down, I quickly walked towards the door, saying as I walked that I had something urgent to do first and would text Alex later. The driver immediately stopped me. I was stunned. There was a noise behind me. Before I could figure things out, the driver grabbed my arms and restrained me. He forced me to go deeper into the dark house despite me asking a lot of questions. He pushed me into a room. In front of me was Alex with a strange smile, holding a sharp knife. The room was cluttered with strange medical equipment, many of which were still covered in blood. On the wall hung many photos of different men. They will lose any part of their body, or have knives or scissors close to their skin. Their expressions were extremely painful and panicked. The middle photo, and also the largest photo, is a photo of Alex and the driver taken together. They posed with extremely intimate gestures and smiles as if they were mocking viewers. So panicked, all I could do at that moment was run away. I tried to struggle away from the driver, but his strong grip held me firmly. Alex grabbed my hair with one hand and held it tight. His other hand slowly brought the knife towards me. I begged in fear, but Alex continued to bring the knife. Alex and the driver burst into perverted laughter and were extremely satisfied when they saw me begging and shaking. Just as the tip was about to touch my face, the loud sound of police outside surrounded the house. Alex and the driver looked out in surprise. I took the opportunity to get up and escape. Running outside, I saw 3 police officers along with my father looking at me worriedly. On the way with the strange driver, I had texted my dad about my situation and sent him the location. Luckily, he arrived in time. Alex and the other driver were arrested. They are actually a gay couple. They target gay people like me, terrifying them with blood and wounds, satisfying their perversion with screams and begging. Everything is completely different from the kind and handsome appearance that Alex has. His face and that disgusting smile still haunt my mind to this day.